Adrian, there is a lot going on. What on earth have you got in store for me?
Well, for me, cooking a steak is really simple and easy to do. So what I thought is I might tart it up a little bit by doing some wonderful things that go really well with a fantastic grass-fed beef steak, which is what I'm going to do for you. Now, this is something I know you're going to love.
Yeah,
because
love this.
I know you don't eat steak, so I'm going to do a few things that are going to work really well, and you're still going to enjoy the meal, although you won't eat as much steak as me, I'm sure. Now, what I've got here is some mushrooms. I've got some field mushrooms.
All sorts of mushrooms.
Some button mushrooms, some Swiss brown mushrooms, some shiitake mushrooms, and some oyster mushrooms. Basically, all the mushrooms you can find in a supermarket or grocery store. Grab a little bit of everything, pop it onto a piece of baking paper, slide a piece of foil underneath, get some thyme from your garden, just tear it off and throw it on top, a couple of knobs of butter, and to that, I'm going to get you to put some pepper on there, and I'll put the salt, because only I can be trusted with the salt, because I know you're quite careful about your salt. And for me, a little bit of salt on there, that's what brings out the flavour. There we go, a little pinch of salt on there and some for the devil's eye.
Yes.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it up in the foil and the baking paper. So what I do is I fold it over like this, and then to seal it off, I'll just seal it around like this. It's like making an empanada or a little dumpling, and I'm going to get you to do that. And what I want you to do is just seal it off all around the outside.
Nice and tight?
Nice and tight.
Yep.
And when that cooks, basically we're steaming the mushrooms in their own juices with a little bit of butter in there as well, and that helps to keep the flavour in there.
Mushrooms,
and all the sauce will be in there as well. So what I'll do is get you to pop that onto the tray there. And then we put that into the oven at about 200 degrees Celsius. It'll take about 15 to 20 minutes to cook. So into the oven it goes.
You want me to do that for you?
Go for it.
All right.
Now, Rosie, while those mushrooms are cooking, I'm going to make the Bearnaise sauce, which is a classic sauce that I used to make when I was a young apprentice working in the hotels. So what I've got is some beautiful free-range eggs.
Yes.
Crack 3 eggs, put the whites in here and put the yolks in here.
Yes.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to put what we call the reduction. This is the bit that makes it really tasty. And what that reduction is some champagne vinegar or white vinegar, some white wine, some shallots, some peppercorns, some chervil, some tarragon and a little bit of parsley. And what I do is I put it into a pot and reduce it down by half. And what it does, it becomes really, really strong. Now, I'm going to give you a tiny little bit of it so you can taste it, Rose. Have a little taste of that.
Oh, my goodness me. That was a little bit too much, I think, just of that.
It is strong, isn't it? And it's got a real punch to it. You want that acid in there because we're going to add a lot of yolks and butter to it.
So, Adrian, if you obviously don't have a team of chefs working for you, how do we manage to grab that?
Look, if you wanted to make a quick version of that, you could just get some white vinegar, a little bit of white wine, pop it into a pot. It takes about 10 minutes to reduce it down. And if you like making brunch at home, you can use the same reduction to make a Hollandaise sauce. They're the same thing, really.
Okay.
Now, what I've got in there is my reduction or my reduced vinegar and white wine. And I've got my water here. Now, what I'm going to do is cook this over a bain-marie, which is water at the bottom, which is just simmering over very, very lightly. I'll whisk that up until we get a sabayon, which is something you'd make when you're making a zabaione or lots of dessert things. And what we want to do is whisk it so the egg yolks cook very, very slowly. They don't overcook and scramble. And they incorporate that reduction so you get this really thick, creamy sort of sabayon. And then what we do with that is pour the butter into it nice and slow. So it's a really easy thing to do. By doing it like this, you can be assured that you won't overcook it. All you have to do is find someone to stand there for about 5 minutes or 10 minutes just whisking it over the bowl here. While that's cooking, I'm going to get you to chop some herbs. I've got some chervil here, some tarragon here and some parsley. You can use all of these herbs or some of them, whatever you like, but you need to have a few herbs at the end of it. Now, this will take a few minutes, so I'll get whisking and you get chopping. Okay, Rosie, you can tell when this is ready because you do a figure 8 with your whisk here like that, and it holds the figure 8. By the time you get back to the top of the 8, it's still holding. That's how you know the sabayon's cooked. It's pretty easy, and it takes about 5 minutes, isn't it?
Only years of experience for that one.
Oh, I reckon you can pick it up pretty quick. Now you know how to do it, so you're an expert now. Now, what I've got here is some clarified butter. I've got some of this unsalted butter, popped it into a warm place, and it's separated. All the milk solids will be at the bottom, and all that beautiful butter fat will be at the top. I'm going to get you to pour that in very slowly. And what I want you to think about when you're making this, it's just like doing a mayonnaise. That's it, just a little bit slower, that's it. And what you do is whisk the butter into the sabayon, just a little bit at a time. There we go, in it goes. You can see it's just starting to change a little bit. It becomes more yellow and it starts to thicken up a little bit. That's it. You can see it's thickening up beautifully. And what you want to do, if it does thicken up too much, you can just add a little bit of the hot water from there, which will thin it down just a little bit, and you can keep adding more and more butter. But I reckon once you've got just a touch more butter in there, there we go. I reckon we're just about done. I reckon you bang on there. Now, what I'm going to do is add some herbs. You've got the chives in there, the chervil, the parsley, and the tarragon. I add it in there, fold it all the way through.
That tarragon smelled amazing.
It does.
I don't often cook with it, so when I do, it's like...
It's a great herb.
treat.
It's really strong, goes well with all types of fish. Now, I've got a lemon there. If you can put a couple of drops of lemon straight in there, I'll put a pinch of salt in there as well. And then, of course, all I need to do is have a little bit of a taste of that. You could eat it on its own, couldn't you?
Whoa-wee.
You could just cut some raw vegetables and stick it in there and eat it, but I tell you what, it is good, isn't it? Now, what I'm going to do is pop this aside, and the trick with Bearnaise sauce is to keep it nice and warm. So it's in a nice warm bowl. We'll put it aside, and we'll get the steak on. Now, what I've got here is some tenderloin beef or eye fillet. It's a beautiful cut of the beef. It's actually nice and tender, moist, and it just falls apart. Now, what we're going to do is season it up. Because salt loves meat, meat loves salt. The two go together so well. You can't have beef without putting a little bit of salt on it. And as I like to say, if you think you're having too much salt in your diet, don't put any salt on your veggies because no one's going to eat them anyway. If you've got a beautiful steak like this,
you have a lot of sayings, don't you, Adrian?
I do. Now, you've got to make sure you've got plenty of salt on there. And grab that pepper over there. Put some pepper on there as well. And I'm going to put just a little tad of olive oil on here. I'm using my griddle pan, which doesn't need a lot of oil, but what I want to do is just help it to transfer the heat. So I put a couple of drops of olive oil on there, and then what I do is with my fingers here, I'm just going to pop it onto the griddle pan, and you'll hear that beautiful sound of a sizzling steak. On it goes. Now, Rosie, I've got everything set up here. Now, what I'm going to do is pour the mushrooms in here. And I knew you'd like this one. The mushrooms and all the juices go in there as well.
That's great.
There we go. And what I'm going to do is just grab some herbs here and just stir some fresh herbs through here. Now, I know that you don't eat meat, so what I've got is a separate plate here. And I'm going to plate this one up for you. I'm going to put some mushrooms on here. And I'm going to get you to put some of the peas with zucchini.
Okay,
That's for you as well.
Perfect.
And I'm going to grab the steak here, grab a lovely piece of steak there, pop some mushrooms in next to it. I'll remove some of these thyme stalks here. There we go.
I'm glad you're having some too.
There we go. Pop some peas and zucchini on mine as well. There we go. And then the Bearnaise sauce. This is the thing that we're dying to eat. I've got a spoon here. I'm going to put some Bearnaise sauce straight over your mushrooms and your peas.
Now, just a little bit for me.
There we go.
Okay, and I want you to remember as well that this sauce... I mean, this isn't an everyday sauce. I mean, this is a bit of a moderation sauce. There's a bit of a naughty sauce we've got going on here. And it is sauces. I want you to remember that sometimes it is sauces that slip in the extra sugar and the extra salt. So just be a little bit mindful that sometimes you don't need to extra season your food because there's already quite a lot in it.
All that talking, all that cooking has almost made me run out of energy. What I'm going to do is cut into this and have a look at the sauce and that beautiful medium rare steak. Put a little bit of the Bearnaise on there, a little bit of mushroom on there as well. There we go. And I want you to have a taste of the Bearnaise sauce and see how well it goes with the mushrooms.
That really is very good. I'm actually quite impressed with my mushrooms as well because that texture is quite meat-like as well for me. So that goes beautifully together with that sauce. I'm really happy with that.
That is fantastic. It is delicious. It's moist and tender. The mushrooms go well with it and the Bearnaise sauce. Now, I've cooked 2 steaks, which is the perfect portion for me. I don't want any of this to go to waste, so you can have all the mushrooms and I'll have the rest of the steak with that lovely Bearnaise sauce.
Well done.